I hate summer. There's bugs everywhere, it's hot, and when it's nice outside, people expect me to go outside. Stardew Valley is outside, Mom. See, I'm cutting out all the fiber. Yet, summer is my favorite season, and I think we all know why. And now that school's not gonna be a problem anymore, I can finally talk about the teachers. You graded me all year, it's about time I grade you. I'm gonna be so biased. You'll be graded on A to F, A being the best, and F being, of course, the worst. And E is left out because of English or whatever. And there are pluses and minuses as well because of math or whatever. Okay, I'm diving straight in. First teacher I have here is Mr. Friend. None of their names are going to be their actual names, by the way. Mr. Friend is a veteran teacher that teaches social studies. This was his last year before retiring. No wonder you teach social studies. You were probably there for every historical event. Something you learn about Mr. Friend almost right away is that he's really mean. And old. Very wrinkly and old, like the Constitution. And you also learn that he picks favorites, and very quickly too. I was actually the lucky few chosen to be loved by Mr. Friend. And it's not like you have to brown nose him to become a favorite. It just happens, randomly. So there was no sucking required for me. Not the first time I said that. Overall, Mr. Friend, you get a B minus. And the only reason I'm not failing you is because you were nice to me specifically. Now get out of here. Next, we have Mrs. Balone. She teaches English and accidentally found her Twitter while trying to find out if the questions on her worksheet were copied from some Quizlet. I feel like English teachers get specifically dunked on a lot because they're required to teach lame books like great expectations. Sorry, saying the words made my gal reflexes react. Well, it's not like she can change what books you read. But unfortunately, Mrs. Baloney, that is not where your problem lies. Your problem is you specifically target me for some reason. Like this one time our class had to turn in these posters with symbolism, she goes up to my desk and says, Weeby, I need you to explain your poster right this instant. What? What? I didn't know she was gonna ask us about it. Obviously, I couldn't get a single word out because if there was a human interaction class, I would be failing it. And she didn't ask any other student to explain the poster. Only me. Only me! I thought it'd be alright because I explained my poster very clearly in my paragraph we had to write with it. Oh, and by the way, guys, I won't be looking at the paragraphs. What? What are all these twists? Where is she getting these? And for that, Mrs. Baloney, you're getting a C. For the exact opposite reason with Mr. Friend. Now we have Mr. Michael Myers himself. Mr. Michael Myers is my tech teacher. He's very fun and is the kind of teacher that you can just joke around with. I actually sent him this gif of him. The gif was his face and a really muscular shirtless man, and then rainbows fly everywhere, and then his head pops out and starts shooting lasers and blowing up everything. He thought it was great and showed it to the entire class. You get an easy A, Mr. Michael Myers. If you were any more fun, I would have failed my entire grade just to take your class again. And now we have the one and only Coach Michael Jordan. It's a different Michael this time, guys. Coach Michael Jordan is our gym teacher if you guys hadn't got that ready. There wasn't anything super notable about him, but he was our gym teacher, which means his job is to play kickball with us. He was super chill. I never saw his face change emotions for the entire school year. He was also chill about kids just screaming swear words at each other. B minus. Nothing super cool, but it doesn't mean he wasn't cool. Now we have quite a titan of a teacher. Give it up for Mr. Paint. He's my art teacher. That's why I named him Mr. Paint. He gets an A+, star teacher right here. I talked about him in a previous video about throwing a party. Check it out if you haven't already. But I want to talk about some other things about him. He's not fine with swearing. He swears in class. Also, he spent an entire class just trying to mew. I mean, as an art teacher, all you gotta do is paint with your students, so the entire school year was just him in the class chatting. I didn't specifically talk in class because once again, I'm no good when it comes to social interactions. Still, everything about him was so cool. He also looks like Walter White. I said it in an old video, so this is the third time I'm talking about him. That's how cool this man is. Also, somehow you happen to be watching this, Mr. Paint, the Walter White. I would love to cook with you someday. I'll be your Jesse. Next is my math teacher, Mrs. Wei. She taught me math. She also speaks Japanese. Mrs. Wei would spend the entire class explaining a certain topic wasn't hard. Kinda excessive, but most kids weren't listening to her anyways. I also found her Twitter, on purpose this time. And her marriage was in some kind of news website. That was kinda weird, and I think she thinks I'm stalking her. Solid D plus for her. She was fine, but she also taught math, so you were never gonna get that high. Here comes our next teacher, Mrs. Hermione. Science teacher and really nice. She was especially nice because she had to keep up with a very obnoxious class. Every 2 words she says, somebody has a question, and the question is usually some random hypothetical that doesn't relate to our topic that much. One time I asked her if she would still love me if I was a worm. So, Mrs. Hermione, I am personally thanking you for keeping up with our abomination of a class. For that, you get a B+. plus. Also, if you are watching this, what's your favorite color? Is it purple? You seem like a purple person. You never answered the question in class. You're almost through with our list. Mr. Michael Schmidt. Yep, we're back with the Michaels. Very mid-tier Spanish teacher. I mean, I was extra annoying in class. But you're also bald, so you're not getting a good grade. You also failed me on part of my Spanish final. Did I mention he was bald? He's like the Rock's fat cousin, the Boulder. You know, because he's fat and bald. Unfortunately, Mr. Michael Schmidt, your cons outweigh your pros. D minus. Be thankful. You gave me an F on my speaking exam. Last but certainly not least, Mrs. F. She gets an F minus. F, 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 all the way. She's actually my homeroom teacher, so I spend like 10 minutes with her every day. But those 10 minutes are the saddest 10 minutes of my day, every time. I'm sorry, but the truth is the truth. Also, her name is Mrs. Because I never actually learned how to pronounce it. She's the kind of teacher that will be super cheery and expects everyone else to be super cheery with her. Mrs. would always tell these terrible jokes to the class and expect people to be howling with laughter. My entire class had no reaction at all, because it's a high school. And afterwards, she would say, I'm so funny. It was so painful, I started texting my friends all the jokes she said. My law in life is that if I suffer, I want everyone else to suffer with me. I could go on for an hour about this, but I'll just say I wish she was old and wrinkly like Mr. Friend so she could retire. And that's it. All my teachers. If you want to gain anything from this, don't be like Mrs. You know what, actually? You get a Z minus, Mrs. This is my longest video I made on this channel so far, unless you count my top 3 favorite shows, which I don't. I know I don't know a lot of teachers, but to be fair, their jobs are to teach us, not to entertain us. So all the teachers I talked about here are good teachers, except Mrs. Of course. Even Mr. Michael Schmidt is a decent teacher. Speaking of him, I know the comments are gonna be like, Weeby, you keep complaining that he's bald, but you're also bald. Actually, I'm not bald in this thing called real life. I'm not freaking Caillou. I have a forest of follicles on top of my scalp for your information. It's just hard to draw hair. I have nothing else to talk about, so peace.